Hi YouTube, this is Archaic Fate, and I have way too much information to go over. Archaic Fate, basically my definition of destiny. Now we got this thing going on in Hawaii, but it's not just Hawaii, it's all over. We have heat waves, floods, earthquakes everywhere. We got 3, 4, 5.0s going off every hour, what have you. It's crazy. And so everyone's talking about it, no one, earth core, tectonic plates, all this stuff. Anyways, everyone missed my point on my video about magnetism. Magnetism is shown as the North and South Pole, and this is so upside down because no one considers the ecliptic plane of magnets, and nobody got the point. So here, what does that have to do with what we're looking at? Well, everything in the universe is electric. It's electromagnetic. Everything that happens is electric. Craters aren't created by impact meteorites. They're electrical discharges. This is a galaxy over here. This is the magnetic shape that it takes because the magnetism is the strongest, is the field that it follows. This is the crater or the trench on Mars. And it's in the same shape because it's following the same force. This is a crab nebula. When something blows up, it creates these filaments. So these filaments are plasma tubes. These are magnetic lines. So then we have the plasma filaments in the universe, in nebulas, in an individual filament, and you can see there's multiple filaments. And so you can see that these currents actually wrap around each other. They don't combine, which is odd, but you can go watch the Birkeland current video and they explain why. But just knowing that, and so that's the cause of the patterns we see on the planets, and that's what drives the rotation of the planet. If you're spinning clockwise, if you point the clock down, it's spinning one way. You point the clock up, it's spinning the other way. And if you apply these to the top and the bottom of the planet, then the planet will spin, and you can see the currents. You can see on Saturn the winds go this direction, and they go this direction, they go this direction, and you got the circles. Those are all from Birkeland currents. This is kind of a representation of a current, and what they're representing here is an electron beam and an ion beam, and then the creation of a planet. And that's how they create plasmoids in the lab, is with those two types of beams, and the plasmoid will follow down the beam. A plasmoid is basically the seed. This is what causes matter or formation of planets. Basically, the sun is just a planet. It's a very large planet, and it has a plasma field around it because this is where the current from the galaxy is coming in and charging this large, mostly metallic object. And so it's taking that charge. It's creating a heliopause, which means there's another plasma field 5 billion miles out. And so if we saw the sun from a distance, it might look something like this. But because the gaseous giants are inside of the heliopause of the sun, and the sun is bigger and more metallic, that the current actually goes to the sun, and because of the heliopause, it doesn't go to those planets, so they can't ignite, but they do have plasma fields. Jupiter and Saturn have extreme radiation and plasma fields. Those are basically brown dwarfs that are captured by the sun. These planets, these different types of planets, Jupiter and Mars, cannot form in the same region of space out of the same cloud. And what gravitational force do clouds have to pull together and create planets? Planets, all things are created in lightning bolts, thunderbolts, and the Z-pinch. And I can show you in the jet exhaust of engines what we're talking about. These are called Mach diamonds. So as the plasma field travels, it creates these Z points. And you can see the amount of, it's more intense. There's more matter there. More energy. These are your points of creation. So planets aren't created in a ring of dust or congealed dust. They're electromagnetic. They're created out of electricity. This is where your solar system or your interplanetary bodies would form. Right here you could have 3 objects forming. So if you have a plasma tube, which is basically a vortex, so this is the plasma. This star didn't create a polar jet. The plasma created the star. They have it completely backwards. And so I showed this. I don't know if this is true or not, but they're showing that Jupiter should have some fusion. You know, there's a huge plasma field around Jupiter. NASA tried to ignite Jupiter and Saturn with nuclear payloads, and thinking that these stars are thermonuclear. They're not. They're plasma. You're not going to ignite a planet with a thermonuclear device. How would you get Jupiter or Saturn to ignite again? Well, you'd have to take away from the heliopause of the sun. Something would have to happen to the sun. If the sun weakens, these planets will get stronger. And that's what we see plasma effects around planets. We can see an intensify of plasma. We know, something's going on. And that, through the poles, you have the energy input into planets through the poles, and then planets eject matter or subatomic particles out of the equator, and that's what we see. Lightning strikes around most objects' equators. That's why when you look at a comet, the center of the comet is eroded away. That's from the discharge and the energy flowing outward of the comet. And that's the ecliptical plane that I was talking about, the ecliptical plane of the magnet. And planets are basically large magnets, so you don't have a flow from north to south. You actually have an effect in the equator, and the equator is where the matter comes out of, and the planet's the same way, and that's where you get the erosion. And that's lightning is carrying matter off the Earth. You have an energy flow outward from the equator, but the sun is dumping energy into the Earth through the poles. And who knows where that energy ends up? It could go all the way to what they call the core, but gravitational forces in the center of a planet don't exist because they have equal pull in all directions. The weakest point of gravity on any planet, star, or anything is in the center. But anyways, what's really interesting is we're getting such great images of the sun here. And they call these gas clouds. These are all gases that are fusing and doing all these different things. Well, this is a plasma. You're looking at a very large, high-intensity plasma up close. And here's a hole in the plasma. What do you know about that? And what's interesting is, we know because of the contrast of the camera, we're looking at the sun, that this could very well be the same thing we see here, but at a lower elevation. But still, we're pretty much looking at a hole. And here's a rendition. You don't know if this is an artist's picture. Probably is, but I'm sure they don't look like that. But what's underneath the plasma field of the sun? That's the big question. No one will ever know. You can speculate. And I showed this on my last video. These are the currents. So, where do hurricanes come from? Where do tornadoes come from? These are all electrical currents. Even out on the outside. In fact, even NASA will tell you that the electromagnetic flux between a planet and the sun is the size of the planet. You're talking huge channels of plasma traveling through the universe, or the solar system here, as far as we're concerned. So then I did the video last time that we're passing through Jupiter's plasma current to the sun. It's basically this Birkeland current, or the outflow of the sun's equator to the planet Jupiter. They're both pushing out at the equator, and then Jupiter's pulling in. So there's a lot of twisting going on, and that's what you see when they look at the currents in Saturn. You see that twisting going on. So being in alignment with the planet doesn't mean you're going to get directly hit, but sooner or later you're going to pass through those currents. And so we're passing through Jupiter's current right now, and then soon we'll be passing through Saturn's. This picture's neat. Doesn't that remind you of yin yang? That's a galaxy. So, we see the reason why I showed, well, this is how electromagnetic forces work, and this is why you can get square objects in the universe, which is strange. So the reason why I show this is to show you that lightning on Earth, the blue jets, what they're not showing that they're now discovering is antimatter is actually coming up out of the top of the clouds, and then we have the sprites, and then we have the L's. Now this is the circular pattern of the Birkeland current. Could this be coming inward, or basically, since we're at the equator, it's probably going outward flow of electrons? So this ring here matches what we're looking down at when we look at Jupiter and Saturn. So now we're looking at magnetic reconnection. And what this does, this is plasma basically, and it's reconnecting, and it creates vortexes, swirls, and intensity points. This is how things form in the universe. It's electric. It's not gravity. So the main thing I wanted to show today, I've been looking, I went back and looked at all the times that we had alignments and all the things, and I looked at the papers that people wrote, and they all tidal forces and this and that, because they don't understand the plasma vortexes that are all over in the universe. So I looked at the alignments, I looked at what happened. I did that on my last video. I can't get enough information on the video. Anyways, this is 2020. What's going to happen here isn't good. So you have the Sun, you have Jupiter, we have Saturn, the two biggest planets. I don't even know if I want to call them planets anymore. And we got poor little Earth right here. Okay, so what's going to happen? We're going to have plasma tubes to Jupiter, plasma tubes to Saturn. Even if NASA's correct and these plasma tubes only last 8 minutes and then they redirect, doesn't matter. Earth has to pass through this. Earth passes through this, passes through the tubes of these planets all the time. In fact, the magnetosphere from Venus actually pushes Earth outward because they're so close. It's actually that long. But in 2020, this is my warning. Don't start talking about the Earth's core and cosmic radiation and everything else. This is what's going to happen. We're going to pass through these two Birkeland currents almost simultaneously. And it's not going to be good. I'm saying it now. I expect between now and this is July, from now until the end of 2020, there will be another 8, 9, maybe even a 10. I'm not joking. Just because Jupiter's here in 2019, we're going to pass through this whole thing again next year. It's going to be maybe 2-3 weeks later. This one is going to be a couple months later, because you see Saturn's trucking along out here, Jupiter's going a little bit faster, and then Earth's spinning. Zoom.